Hello, everyone. This is Jim Biringer here, NHLRumors.com. Click that notification button, subscribe to the channel, like this video. We're talking about the Philadelphia Flyers, John Tortorella. This morning, the Philadelphia Flyers decided to make a coaching change. Moving on from John Tortorella, they relieved him of his duties. Anthony DeMarco, Daily Faceoff, said that he heard rumblings that they were going to move on from John Tortorella, whether he stepped down, where they fired him, relieved of his duties, mutual parting of the ways. John Tortorella is no longer the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. We all saw what happened Tuesday night after the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Philadelphia Flyers 7-2. John Tortorella said it's his fault. He takes blame for not having the team prepared. I'm not interested in learning how to coach during a season like this. And Danny Briere spoke today, the Flyers general manager, and he talked about how it was a tough decision. But you're hearing more behind-the-scenes stuff that since the trade deadline, Tortorella hasn't been happy with the direction, despite public saying that, hey, I understand where things are going. We heard Pierre LeBrun talk about it on TSN SportsCenter with Jay Armright. He's like, look, he's connected with management. He understands. But Torts is a competitor, right? He wants to win. He's a Stanley Cup champion coach. He wants guys to play hard, wants guys to do things the right way, and he wants a team that is able to be fielded at an NHL level each and every night, and the Flyers are just not doing that. And I think one of the straws that broke the camel's back was a Scott Laughton trade, where you just trade him away for futures, and that doesn't help the Flyers now, right? They were a team that were on the cusp of making the playoffs last year, albeit a mirage. But still, I mean, Tortorella and the Flyers overachieved, and it came down to the wire for them not to make the playoffs. And everybody knew they weren't going to make the playoffs last year, but they played hard. And once the Sean Walker trade happened last year, it was all downhill. Now it's all downhill again. And, you hear what Danny Briere says, and you hear said, well, it's been escalating for a couple of weeks now. It's a variety of things throughout the season. If that's the case, why didn't you make the move earlier? Look, I know it's a difficult decision, but 9 games left. Look, it's not New Jersey Devils where they're in a playoff position. You got to move out Fedoruk to get a kick in the pants with Larry Robinson back in 2000, or the Claude Julien move, which is still a head scratcher. 9 games left. I think you could have waited this out, but if the players are upset and that Tortorella was trying to take pressure off the players after that performance the other night. But if the players are upset and Tortorella continues to say these comments in the media, well, then that's a problem. And whether Danny Briere wants to say it publicly or not, Tuesday night's comments about not being interested in coaching in a season like this was the final straw. It was. And he didn't address it. He didn't say that it was, but it was. You could lump it into a variety of reasons. But when a head coach comes out and says that, it's time to move on. And, I don't think John Tortorella was going to be long for this job anyway. I think they were probably going to make a coaching change after the season anyway. But again, 9 games left. Maybe you tell Torts go home, have Bradshaw do that anyway, instead of having Torts around the team, instead of firing and now paying him another year for $4 million. Maybe that's something you do. Cooler heads prevail. But I think John Tortorella, his time is always worn thin after a couple of years. We saw what he did with Columbus, and then they had to make a change. But 9 games is really not enough time for Bradshaw to get a chance at being an NHL head coach, right? It's 9 games. Yes, they're important games, but the evaluation process for a head coach, he needs more than that. He needs 25, 30 games. And I don't think he's the leading candidate to be the next head coach, even if this team shows somewhat progress. They're going to look for a guy that has NHL experience. Maybe you get a Gerard Gallant in there. Maybe a Joe Quenneville comes in there. Again, everybody wants to point the finger at David Carl out in Denver. They're in the middle of the Frozen Four. He's won back-to-back gold medals with Team USA. But again, he's talked about going to the situation that he feels is the right situation. And I don't think the Philadelphia Flyers are the right situation for him, nor is the Chicago Blackhawks. He wants to win right away and have a chance to win. If he wants to come to the National Hockey League, and right now he has no plans on leaving the University of Denver, and why would he? He's the king of the world there. He's the best in the world there. Those college coaches realize what they have going there. Some guys just don't want to coach in the NHL. And then there's Rick Tocchet out in Vancouver, right? Tocchet, we know the connections to the Flyers. He's focused on the Vancouver Canucks season right now, but he doesn't have a contract. And as most people say, they don't know what he wants to do. He's not sure what he wants to do. Stay in Vancouver, go someplace else. So a lot of heads are going to be rolling here. But it's interesting that I think everybody saw this coming. I don't think anybody was shocked. Maybe the timing of it, 9 games left. But John Tortorella does wear himself out, and wear out is welcome in certain places. And I think the team that competed last year is not the team that competed this year. And he's a great assistant coach from his interactions with Mike Sullivan at the Four Nations face-off. The young guys really learn those life lessons, right? But this team has to take the next step. And they took a big step backwards. And when the coach keeps taking blame and blame and blame for not having a team prepared, what does that say about the head coach? I think the Flyers got tired of the blame game. I think the Flyers and management were tired of Tortorella's act. And I think that Tortorella was tired of not having a team that can go on the ice and compete every night, and mostly fielding an AHL team. But at some point, this Flyers team has to take its lumps, and that's how you're going to grow and be better, similar to what we're seeing with Montreal and the steps that they're taking. But again, if this was such a problem, why wasn't it done sooner? We're 3 weeks out from the trade deadline, and now this is a problem. This was really a problem. I think this stuff would have been handled already. And I think the Flyers, the way they handled their trade deadline and everything after, is an indictment on management as well. I think there's a lot of people to blame here. But I think if you were going to make a coaching change, probably should have done it sooner to have better evaluation of your interim head coach, or move on from Tortorella in the summer. But something changed. I don't think he liked where the philosophy was. I don't think he liked the way this team was not competing and not having a competitive lineup on the ice every night. And it boiled over, and things happened on Wednesday, which led to Tortorella being fired on Thursday. And now the Flyers will play 9 more games with an interim head coach. We'll see what happens and what direction they go in. But that's the big news on Thursday. Philadelphia Flyers, they're tired of John Tortorella. They're tired of the blame game. They move on from him. Interim head coach Brad Shaw takes over. This has been Jim Biringer, NHLRumors.com. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back again real soon. Take care.